Hi, I'm Kevin Hill, and today I'm going to share some secrets and some tips and some things that I've picked up along the way when it comes to teaching art classes or art workshops. Now, I just got back from painting an art workshop, and so it's fresh on my mind. I thought, well, why not go ahead and take a time to do a video and give you some of the things that I've learned and some of the mistakes that I've made and things that would have really helped me when I was starting art classes 10 years ago. So with that being said, let's look at the first thing I want to talk about. Do you need to be certified? And in my opinion, and obviously this entire video, just like basically my whole channel, is my opinion. In my opinion, you don't need to be certified whatsoever. And most people that I know, a lot of them that I know that are teaching, who are certified, don't even use their certification. One of the downsides of certification is that you're more, and varies from company to company, but you're more locked into their system, their subjects, and their tools and equipment. Now, it's worth mentioning here that in my opinion, teaching art classes, it seems to be a very safe way to make money. It seems like you can build up a base of students and have them regularly return. The next question is, how many students should I put in a class? Well, that's a tough question, and it varies dramatically based on, number one problem is going to be the size of the room. Obviously, that's anybody could figure that out. You can only fit this many people in this room. That's fine. If you have a room that fits 100, well, how many people do you do a class of 100, or do you do a class of 5? Well, I can tell you this much. If I didn't have help, so if I didn't have my whole family and a bunch of friends that came and helped me, I would not be doing art classes as big as I do them. If it's just a one-man band and it's just you, maybe you and a friend, wife, family, whatever. So two people, one person helping plus you, or just you alone, I'm thinking 10 to 12 max. 10 to 12 people max, in my opinion. More than the room size, it's the helpers that you have that determines how big your art class can be. Now, something that I didn't used to do, but I certainly do it now, is correcting as I go, or making changes as I go. That is, to the student paintings, or suggesting a change. I'll get in there sometimes. I won't get in there too much, especially toward the beginning of the day, and help them individually. What I will do is I'll do a step, so I'll paint the cloud, and then I'll walk around the room as they're painting the cloud. I used to have the attitude of, well, I'm just going to paint quickly and have them go quickly, and then I'll go paint quickly. And then at the end of the day, there'll be plenty of time to fix it all. And what I ended up doing was having to fix 30 paintings at the end of the day. And I think it's less of a learning experience for the students. Yeah, I can fix the paintings, but it's more work for me at the end. And I don't think it's as good of an experience for each person that comes. So what I've done over, it's been maybe 5 years ago that I began to make this change, is I will just correct as I go. So I'm walking around and I see, oh, there's a cloud over here that's down at the bottom of the canvas. Wipe that cloud off, move it to the top of the canvas. Now, even correcting as you go, which is a very powerful tool and a great teaching thing to do, you're still going to have the occasional painter that gets into a jam during the actual painting process. So there's going to be something that you're going to need to jump in, or I'm going to need to jump in and fix. So when that happens, that's fine. Try to do it as quick as possible. I typically will spend a couple minutes working on, sometimes that includes scraping. But if there is a problem that this person is going to absolutely not be able to finish this painting, you need to fix it right then and there, because it's just going to be worse and worse and worse, and they'll be happy once you help them fix it versus being stressed out about the problem the entire day. So hopefully that helps you. You do need to, every once in a while, you do need to sit down and correct something, but for the most part, let the students do it, and just tell them what to do as you're walking by looking at all those canvases. Now I want to go over some of the equipment that you're going to need. Whether you got to figure out whether or not you want to provide the easels, the canvases, the palettes, the paint, the brushes, and the cleanup stuff. So you got to figure out what you want to do. And I've got some tips for you. The first few classes I've ever taught, maybe the first 2 or 3, I supplied the paintbrushes. That was a horrible, horrible mistake. If nothing else, you've got a mountain of paintbrushes that you've got to clean. I remember, I've got this still burned into my memory, this mound of paintbrushes, probably that high, stacked, that I had to clean and get out of that room before this was at art convention, so I had to get out of there and the next person had to come in. The other problem is there's a great expense laid out in order to get all of these brush sets together. It's for you to take that on yourself is just, it doesn't seem like a good idea at all to me anymore. And I've definitely stopped doing that a long time ago. Now, on the flip side, if you decide, okay, I do want to supply paintbrushes, and there's a couple of reasons why you would. If your students are not regular painters, you may have trouble getting them to buy brushes if they're there to see if they like painting. There's that to consider. Now, what about the paint? Well, I supply the paint. I've just always done that, and it's always worked. The expense of supplying paint is not nearly as high as the expense of supplying brushes. I think for that it was about 45 people that ended up showing up for the class. I think, what is it, maybe 2 or 3 tubes of white, maybe 2 tubes of black, 1 tube of red, a tube of sap green. It's not that expensive. It's not that bad. As far as palettes, in the past I used freezer paper. You rip it off, and you can tape it down onto your table. We'll talk about the table in a minute. And I usually just put a little bit of masking tape around it to keep it on the table. But then a few years ago, we decided, forget this, we're wasting too much time ripping all this freezer paper. And, some of them were too small. They were like weird shapes, and we were trying to do them fast, and they curl up on you. We just go out and buy palette paper. It's, I don't know, like $11 for the thing, and you maybe use like 1 per day. And so, yeah, that was well worth it. I go get that gray palette paper. That way they got a gray palette, and that's really nice. So that's my recommendation there. Of course, you definitely need to supply the palettes, in my opinion. Now, what about cleaning the brushes? Well, I have a brush cleaning station, but remember, my students are flying in and driving in, and they're not as well set up. If you're teaching local classes, it might be the easiest thing to do to just give them a bag, like a grocery bag, and just stick the brushes in and just, how you do, just kind of roll it up and send them home. Let them clean them at home. They'll stay wet like that, for days, but if they clean them that night, that would be the best. Just send them home with dirty brushes. I think, if you're teaching an art class of like less than 20 or 30 people, and they're not flying and driving in, they're just local students, just make them clean their own brushes at home. Now, when it comes to easels, I always have my students bring their easels, from home. Now, sometimes when they're flying or whatever reason, they're not able to bring their easel. A lot of times when they're flying, they get them in the suitcase. But every once in a while, somebody's coming in from out of the country, or there's just some circumstance where they can't bring one. If they email me ahead of time, what I'll do is I've got about 5 easels, just tabletop easels, and a friend of mine's got about 5. But typically, I'll have the students bring their own easels. I've got a couple of backups just in case something weird happens, or they come with, a display easel or something crazy. At least I've got something to offer them as long as we don't run out. Now, what about the tables? Well, typically, and this is going to vary from place to place depending on where you teach. Now, typically, I'll have the kind of standard hotel ballroom. I believe they're 8-foot long tables, rectangles. That works out pretty good. I get 3 people per table doing this normally. I really couldn't get any more than that. As it is, that's a little tight. I always cover the tables with those disposable tablecloths that you get at like the party section, I think. And we just throw them on, tape them onto the table. And then I put little trash bags in between each chair so that, because if you don't have a trash bag, things just get really messy and the paper towels mound up, and that's not fun. I know that some art teachers have had an experience where the hotel asked them to place a garbage bag over the chairs to, cover them for the paint. None of the hotels I've ever taught in have ever had me do that. But what they do have me do is put down plastic. That's always required. And if it wasn't required, I would still do it. I couldn't imagine not doing it. It would be a horrible mess. But it's usually required. So I'll take that thick plastic that you get at Home Depot, and I'll have more information about this in the longer Patreon where I show everything. But cover your floors with plastic, tape it down really good. So what do you do when, not if, you get paint on the back of the chairs? I've had several experiences with this, and the best way to get the paint off of the chairs is the green brush soap. I find that it comes out with no staining at all. When I use that, you use it with water. So the green brush soap plus water, and it has saved many hotel chairs. Obviously, your mileage may vary. You may want to do a test. It's not my responsibility if it doesn't work for you, but it has certainly worked for me in the past. The very first art class I ever taught, I did not have a microphone. I did not have a TV, and it was rough. And I lost my voice by the time I was done with that art class. Because think about this, you're standing with your back toward the people that you're talking to. So you're shouting and you're having to constantly turn around and shout. And it's just not fun at all. So this is absolutely necessary. You need it, in my opinion, if you're going to be doing a class any bigger than like 20 people, you need a microphone, an amplifier, and a TV. The TV may be not necessary until you get up more to along the 30 people line. We'll have more information about this in the Patreon video. I don't want to bog us down with all this, but just know if you're going to do larger classes, you may want a TV and you definitely want a microphone. You may be noticing an advantage when it comes to painting smaller classes. All of a sudden, you don't have to worry about the TVs, the cameras, the microphones. You know, if you're supplying the brushes, it's not that big of a deal. If you're painting 10 to 12 students, you know, there's a big advantage there. If you're just dipping your toes into doing art classes, you may want to do 10, 12, 8 students at a time, something like that, because it is so much more forgiving and you don't have the expensive equipment to deal with and the heavy equipment to deal with. Now, I highly recommend putting a sketch on the canvas. I've got more information about that in the Patreon version. Now, it's just not something that I probably wouldn't do it. If I was painting art classes and it was just me, we would definitely not have a sketch. But Dad is really good at that sort of thing, and he'll put a sketch on the canvas. There's a couple ways to do that. He'll make a stencil and trace around the stencil, and that way we can do 40 canvases at once. If you only have 5 canvases, you could even freehand it if you want to, or use not tracing paper. What is it? Transfer paper. That's the one. I know a good friend of mine just did a class and he used transfer paper. He only had 12 students or whatever it was, so perfect. But get a sketch on the canvas because it will save you a lot of headache and a lot of time. And the last thing that you probably never heard anybody tell you about art classes is canvas carriers and how to get the painting home. Well, there's several ways you can do it, and I'm going to cover probably all of the best ways to do it over on Patreon. I'm going to give you the cheapest and easiest way, which are push pins. You can use push pins in each corner of the painting, stick. And yeah, you're going to mess up. I mean, you're physically putting a hole in the canvas, but it's so tiny, and the frame's going to cover the hole. And then you're going to put the 2 paintings together, buttered sides together, and then tape it up really good. And that'll keep your paintings safe for transport. I've got a friend that makes custom wooden boxes that hold your wet paintings without damaging them. They're amazing, but he does not mass produce them, and he only sells them at the classes, and he usually sells out. So it's not like something you're going to be able to reproduce. So definitely use the push pin method. And honestly, I could probably go on forever talking about all the different things that I've learned about how to do these art classes and about what works and what doesn't. Hopefully this has got you started and has encouraged you. You can absolutely get out and start painting and doing classes and making money and just continue to grow your skills as well. And your students will grow, you'll grow. And it's going to be a fantastic experience. Even if there's some rough spots, there always are. If you want me to do a part 2, or there's anything that I missed, or anything you'd like to know, let me know in the comments. And definitely don't forget Patreon. We're going to go into a lot more detail about the exact setup that I use for my large workshops, if you're at all interested in that. Don't forget to check out our website, DVDs, and Brushline. Thanks for watching.